Hey guys, on today's episode, we talk about the biggest heavyweight boxing fight of the year, possibly the decade. If you haven't already guessed by the title, we're talking about the Fury and Wilder fight. It's coming up this weekend.
They're here.
Welcome to the Hook J Podcast.
Who the fuck is that guy? Who the fuck is that?
When it's all said and done, I know one thing that I can do. I can fight. I can give it, and I can take it.
You should have left me over on that other game that I'm from, that more ruthless game where we bounce heads off the canvas and drill them into the floor. You should have left me where I was.
The show starts now.
So how do these two stack up against each other? Fury comes in at 6'8", as a former heavyweight champion with a record of 27-0. Wilder is 40-0, and the current reigning WBC heavyweight title holder. Wilder has been on a very impressive winning streak, has never lost, all his wins except for one coming by knockout. However, Fury is no tomato can himself, coming in with only a 27-0 record. He has fought some of the most impressive fighters in recent decades. Most notably, he went to a decision with Vladimir Klitschko prior to his retirement. Vladimir himself, no slouch, he held the title for over 10 years before losing it to decision to Fury. After his fight, Fury decided to go in retirement for 3 years. He comes out of retirement at the beginning of this year in fantastic fashion. During his retirement, he got up to over 400 pounds. He slims down, comes out of retirement, wins his past two fights at the beginning of the year, this being his third. Earlier this year, Wilder fought Luis Ortiz, and he's the only person to put Deontay Wilder in recent history in trouble during a fight. He managed to rock him in the 7th round of their fight, putting him in serious jeopardy before the bell saved Wilder. Wilder ended up coming back in that fight, ultimately winning by TKO 3 rounds later in the 10th. This was the first time we saw Wilder hurt in his professional career. Going into their fight with the story of Fury's comeback and Wilder's KO streak, this is shaping up to be a great fight. So how do you see this one going?
I honestly think Fury is he's gonna dance around him. He's just gonna outbox him. I think technique's gonna win the day on this one because from what I've seen from Wilder, is really unorthodox and really to somebody like me who doesn't watch boxing enough, he looks like he's untrained. I know he is trained, but I also know that whenever he throws a power punch, the man swings from the floor to the rafters. He throws everything in those, man. And Wilder hasn't really ever gone the distance, so technique could very easily win today by putting him into deep water if Fury is still light on his feet. The Gypsy King is no joke. He moves at his size incredibly well. Foot placement, head movement, man, his waist movement. God, he's all over the place. His technique is just unparalleled at that weight class.
So, like we mentioned earlier, prior to his retirement, he fought Klitschko. He outboxed what many can consider one of the, if not the greatest heavyweight boxer of all time. He held he held multiple belts for over 10 years. He wasn't a very exciting fighter to watch. If you watch a lot of his fights, it was very much jab, jab, clinch, and then break, and then do the same thing over and over. He won. You know, he took the approach like, I'm going to win the belt and keep it, opposed to just wildly swing. And Fury came in there and outboxed him, which you can go, oh, it was close, it was this, it was that. End of the story, Fury wins, right? Tyson's a big guy. He's 6'8". He's got some reach on him. He's a heavyweight. He moves unlike any heavyweight in recent history. He's able to tag you, get in, get out. And he said in recent interviews that he's planning to outbox Deontay Wilder.
And I think he's right. I think he's going to outbox him.
I think when you have a guy like Fury and you have a guy who's determined, Fury said when he lost, or they made him relinquish the belt, is what it is. They stripped him of it because of political reasons. We can get into a whole boxing being corrupt or whatever.
Politics.
They ended up stripping him of the belt. He felt he had nothing to do. He felt that he at the top of what he could do. You know, he didn't know where else to grow. So he retired. He tried everything, coke being one of them, and he ballooned up to 400 pounds or so. He ended up losing a lot of it last year, beginning of this year, and coming back at the beginning of this year. He has this undeniable force behind him now. He has this will to gain that belt back. And when you have a man who with a will to get something, he's either going to do it or he's not going to do it. That's as simple as it's going to be.
Buster does it.
Yeah, you can go that. Where you have Deontay Wilder, who has the belt, right? He's come from nowhere. He was a former football player and basketball player and all this stuff. A couple years ago, he decides to go into boxing, and he hasn't been fighting for quite as long. Fury's been fighting since he was a baby. Wilder has not. Wilder recently got into it. I think it was when he was in his 20s is when he got into boxing. A lot of people are like, oh, he's undefeated, which he is. He's a power puncher. He goes in there trying to knock your block off every time. He tries to punch through you. Here's what a lot of people don't understand. Everyone looks at the professional records, right? Everybody looks at the professional records, go, oh, this guy was great. This guy's never lost. His amateur bouts, he lost. Deontay Wilder lost. I'm pretty sure the same thing with Fury. But I bring up his amateur bouts because when he was fighting with the amateurs, that's a lot more skill, right? You have the headgear on. It's a lot more like, okay, you got to outpoint somebody. Oftentimes it goes to decision. That's a big ordeal. If you don't have that headgear on, right, that headgear is supposed to save you, really kind of hurt you in the long run because you get a lot more brain damage from that because you can throw a little harder, which someone against Deontay Wilder, that's very hard if you knock somebody out with some headgear on. You have to actually box. You have to outpoint somebody, which he didn't do. He lost 5 times in his amateur career. That says a lot. That means he can't really outbox people at when you're going there to actually point somebody.
Yeah, at a certain skill level, his power is not going to help.
There's no headgear in this one. This is professional level. So the question is, can Tyson Fury take that power? On paper, it seems like you have skill versus power. On paper, you go, this guy has all the power in the world. He's able to punch through people, It's amazing. And then you have Tyson Fury, who has all the skill in the world. It's going to be an interesting fight between the two just because of that. If you put it on paper, you're like, this guy, he's going to go out there, he's going to try to outbox him. This guy's going to try to punch through the other one, It's going to be interesting to see how this plays out. I'm definitely going to watch it. It's definitely going to be the ones that you turn on, and more than likely, because it's a boxing thing, you're not going to pay attention to the undercard until you get to the main one. And when the main card goes there, you'll watch the whole thing and be like, I don't understand boxing, but that dude seems like he's winning.
Well, he's got skill, but he's just relying on his power so much. I mean, he did go to the Olympics and he did place bronze, but Wilder is exactly like his last name, man. He's just wild. Like he throws from odd angles sometimes, and
he's very unorthodox. And
I think it catches a lot of people who've been doing it for so long off guard because they're just not used to it.
Yeah, well, that's what happened with Ortiz, his last fight. He caught him with, from what I remember, Deontay Wilder threw a right or so, very weird, and Ortiz caught him in the 7th, right, rocked him, and a lot of people were like, they could stop the fight here. The bell rang before he could actually finish him, but it was very close, and that was very unorthodox for the way he threw it, and he got caught. Cut to 3 rounds later, and it happened in reverse, where Ortiz, Wilder threw this wild right, bam, rocked him, and then he went and did work, finished him. Ortiz is a very interesting fighter in the fact that he doesn't fight like anybody else. And Fury is a very interesting fighter because he doesn't move like anybody else. This is going to be, if you're going to get into boxing, I think this is the fight that you should watch. At least for like the first live fight, If you're like, I'm getting to the boxing this weekend, this is the one you watch.
I think Fury's just going to go in there and walk him around the ring. I think it's not going to be like a Pacquiao-Mayweather situation where he's running from him the whole time, but I think he's just going to outmaneuver. I think Fury's probably going to be on the outside more so he can use his movement. I don't think Wilder's going to be able to control center.
From the few fights that I've watched of both of them, I'm not a huge boxing fan, but I have watched the big ones in my life. I've sat down, I was like, okay, if I'm getting into this big fight, I'll watch a couple of his smaller ones and see what's up. And one thing I did notice in the Wilder fights, when he covers up in a traditional like boxing style. He puts his 2 hands in front of him, and the guy swings most of the time and hits his arms. And what I've noticed, especially the Ortiz fight, his last one, Ortiz went to the body quite a few times, right? Which opened him up for that hit, which we got him. Which, that's amazing to see that happen because I think you can utilize that down the road. It makes sense at any point. You go to the body, he's protecting his body, then you go to the head. If he's protecting his head, you go to the body. But if you take like the Rocky Marciano approach, where you're going to beat the hell out of his arms and his body to where he can't defend his head, then there's a problem there for the guy trying to defend because you can't lift your arms up. So I think Wilder, if you're going to fight him in a boxing match, like if Fury was going to go in there and decide, say he throws the plan out the window and decides to go in there and scrap, definitely work the body. I think that's probably a major thing with it. I don't think anyone's really worked the body other than Ortiz, and it kind of shows a little bit with it. Whereas Fury, I think he's going to take the approach of staying on the outside, jab him, move, jab, move, kind of take the Fury approach to it, I'm excited to see how it goes down.
I'm really excited to see if Fury's still going to have the movement, the technique, and all this stuff going in with as much emotion that he has right now. I'm not saying he's like crazy hyped up on himself or anything, but with everything that he's had that he personally put himself through, to be honest, everything he put himself through with the drug abuse, the alcohol abuse, the wanting to kill yourself, the just depression, all that stuff, and then come back, and the only reason you come back is because Wilder was calling you out, telling you you're washed up anyways. You come out and like, all right, let me get a practice fight or two, and I'll go beat your ass again. Here we go. For them to go out there and do this is going to be huge. And I think Fury, I don't think he's going to get knocked out. I think he's going to get a decision in the end. And I think it's going to be handily. I don't think it's going to be much for Wilder. Unless Wilder just went out there and obviously gets the knockout, which he's famous for, or he goes out there and actually takes a boxing approach and tries to stick and move, which I don't think is going to happen. I think Wilder is just going to walk forward, throw them bombs as much as he can, and I think Fury's not going to be there for many of them.
I was thinking, like, when have we seen, like, the last time the big fights were like this? Like, skill versus power? And it always comes back to Ali Frazier, right? The Rumble in the Jungle. The guy who's skilled, he's able to stick and move out of the way versus the guy who's throwing these bombs.
Classic example.
That's one of the classic examples. I'm sure there's more than that. You can go with Mike Tyson and Evander Holyfield, the better boxer versus the guy who's going to knock out everybody. There's a couple more in there, but every time the better boxer wins because boxing comes down to a science. It's the science of boxing, and I don't see this going in any other direction than Fury besides the Wilder knockout, right? That's the only way I see Wilder winning. If you have to put money on it, I would say put it on Fury just because, it seems like the safe bet.
Fury is definitely the boxing safe bet. Depends on the politics, though.
There's been a few iffy boxing matches I've watched here recently. It's going to be interesting to see how this goes down. If you're going to watch a boxing match this weekend, watch this one.
Only thing is, man, I got to watch a few other fights just to get to that fight, which I'm not completely excited for. So.
It is the super mega fight combat sports weekend. I don't know what you want to call it.
I'm going to be so burnt out on fights this weekend. I'm not going to want to watch much come next week, even though next week's the big event.
Well, with all the fights and all that, and you're like, oh, that's pretty amazing. And then with this boxing match thrown in there, by next weekend, you're like, can someone throw a head kick at some point? So
it's going to be a really interesting fight to watch it play out. We have your traditional boxer, striker, all-around good mover. What you would think is a boxer just on paper versus the guy who can come in and level the playing field with a one swing, regardless of how much technique he doesn't actually have. So I'm looking forward to it. I don't look forward to many boxing matches other than Pacquiao, Mayweather, Canelo, Alvarez versus Golovkin. The big fights I look forward to. This is going to be definitely one of the ones I have to watch. I'm definitely going to sit there and watch it. I highly suggest you guys try to find a way to watch it.
We can go into more detail, but I'm not, and he's not going to do it because there's a lot to talk about with it. I'm sure you guys can come up with it.
And boxing isn't our forte.
Yeah.
It's just, we like combat sports. Anytime there's a big fight, we want to watch it, regardless.
Go watch some stuff on Showtime. I think it's on Showtime too, right? If you really want to know more about it, go on YouTube.
Google it.
Like BBC has a bunch of documentaries on it. Showtime has a bunch of things on it. So it's going to be a great weekend of fights. There's a ton of them, including this one. Check us out on Twitter. I'm at Hooked JP. He's at Hooked something. Was it Hooked Justin?
Yes.
Like, share, subscribe, do all that stuff. I wouldn't tell you to do it, but I just did. Okay.
And that's going to wrap up this special edition of a combat sport we don't usually cover. And, just a little bit of insight from unprofessionals talking about something very professional.
Yeah. The professional, unprofessional boxing podcast.
Yeah.
There you go.
We're nothing professional. Check out the links below, guys.
Bye.
Thank you for listening to the Hook J Podcast. Hope you enjoyed today's show. See you next episode.
Sometimes you've got to do what's right for you and not do what's right for everybody else.